All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor, and I'm here with Calvin.
Hey.
And we have McKinnon on as a guest again.
What's up?
And today we're talking about, this is one of my favorites. I know it's one of McKinnon's favorites.
It is, yeah.
And Calvin, I think you said you saw this for the first time.
Yeah, I've been waiting a long time to watch this, so it was
Yeah,
nice to actually finally watch it.
Yeah, we're doing Edge of Tomorrow today, or Live, Die, Repeat, or All You Need Is Kill, which is the source material. This goes by many names because it's very confusing how it was marketed. So, McKinnon, what is your first impression of this movie?
I have always loved this movie. I remember watching it years ago with my in-laws, and I fell in love with it, and I didn't really know why because I was stupid and I didn't know anything about movies yet. And now I understand that I like the performances. I like the comedy in it. I think it mixes well with action. Just so much of this movie I enjoy.
Yeah, right. No, I agree with you. I think it's schlocky, but it's all great action. I love it. Calvin, first time seeing it, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I'd wanted to watch this for a long time because the trailer really appealed to me. Like, the song they used was really melancholic, which told me that the point of this action thriller was character-driven and philosophically minded. And it is intelligent for an action thriller, but I was still left wanting more because there are big questions here and a lot of emotional depth to mine. Ultimately, it stops too short to become a true boundary-breaking work of meditative art because they needed to wrap up the narrative. So it's still just an action thriller with like Wile E. Coyote moments.
Right. Okay. I knew you were going to have some big first impression on it about how it doesn't meet your expectations, like conceptually and stuff like that.
It's not
philosophically.
Even that it's not even like it's not that it doesn't meet them. It's that it teases them and then doesn't deliver.
All right.
Meditative thriller is exactly what I expected you to say about this.
The most Calvin comment you could have made. I love this movie too. I'm right there with McKinnon. It's a concept that we're familiar with. You know, the whole like it's Ground Hog Day, Happy Death Day's done it. There's that Hulu movie with Andy Samberg, Palm Springs, that's done it, where you live the same day over and over again. And so it's a familiar concept, but I like how this movie uses it to create like a different narrative, like you said, like an action like comedy, I guess, is a way to tell that concept in a way I haven't seen before. I think it's intriguing. I think, like you talked about the performances, I think Emily Blunt is awesome in this. I also really tip my hat to the visual effects crew. Like the practical effects are all awesome. There's a lot of like cool action set pieces that I think are really like done super well. It makes it like really visually awesome to watch. So I want to talk about how this movie was marketed. I mentioned at the beginning that it went by like two different names, and I was surprised to find out that it was originally the director who wanted to call it Live, Die, Repeat. And then it was basically the studio that was really pushing for it to be called Edge of Tomorrow. And it wasn't until after it was kind of bombing in the box office that they agreed to kind of rebrand how it was being marketed. So I think it's all very confusing that all the DVDs came out with like big Live, Die, Repeat on it. And it's got very tiny like Edge of Tomorrow at the bottom.
I thought Live, Die, Repeat was just the tagline. I didn't know that was the title of the movie at one point.
Well, I think that's how they compromised, right? They decided that can be the tagline, but that's because he wanted it to be called that.
I wonder why the studio was pushing so hard for one title over the other. That's
interesting. Live, Die, Repeat sounds goofy as hell.
Yeah, it sounds.
I don't think it sounds good.
I think it sounds so dumb for the concepts they're exploring here. Edge of Tomorrow is also dumb when we're talking about the concepts we're exploring here, but at least it gives you like that big sense of adventure. Like,
I suppose I think Edge of Tomorrow also is a title that barely has anything to do with the film.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with that. I can just see why the executives decided that they wanted their film to be named that.
Yeah, versus like a movie like Groundhog Day, like that has to do with the film because that's the day that's repeated.
I think they wanted something that sounded like epic sci-fi, which is
exactly
it's supposed to be, and like Edge of Tomorrow.
It's like
sounds like that.
Like Jingle All the Way. There's nothing to do with the movie. It's just a Christmas title.
I love Jingle All the Way.
It's a good movie, but the title doesn't matter.
That's all I can think of right now. That movie's so good.
Yeah.
Turbo Man? Oh, it's great.
Ta-ta, Turtle Man.
So there is a sequel in the works. It's been in like pre-production for a while now, and it's called Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat, which is also a crappy title. And so I guess once that movie officially comes out, the first movie will be officially retitled as Live, Die, Repeat. So eventually the director will have gotten his way, which is Doug Liman directed this. He's done like Swingers, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which was on FX like every day for years.
Yeah.
And then he did Jumper, which is a Hayden Christensen movie that.
Classic. I remember that
classic film.
which is great. And Hayden Christensen gets so much hate, and
That's
that
because
movie.
he's not any good in that.
I like Joker. Maybe
I
it's
mean,
just
I
nostalgia.
like, I like the idea of it, but I remember thinking like, wow, yeah, he's really not any better as another character in another movie.
Sound like
as an actor.
like a girl. Like, I love the idea of Hayden Christensen. I just don't love him. Need to break up with him. That's what every studio in Hollywood did because he is in no movies now.
Yeah. Well, I think he's going to be in that that Obi-Wan prequel, right?
Oh, that'd be cool.
I think
to work
so.
him in.
I've heard that.
Well, he's also going to be in the sequel for The Fountain, right?
I hope so. He better be. Everybody better be in the Fountain sequel. It's going to be The Fountain repeat and repeat.
That's what I think of when it's like they might just call it like live, die, rinse, repeat. Like just go full dumb with it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, really play it up.
yeah, because I don't like that title. While I don't like Edge of Tomorrow because it sounds like the day after tomorrow. It sounds like some like apocalyptic event, which I guess is this movie. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like a force of nature event has happened. The Edge of Tomorrow. But anyways, I want to move on to the look of this. I guess if you want to go with like the aesthetic, I like the vehicles and the armor and stuff. Like all the soldiers are still wearing like Kevlar helmets, which you would see today, because the movie takes place in 2020. It's not like set far in the future where they've got these crazy suits and everyone's got this fancy armor and they're shooting laser guns and stuff. I like that it feels a little advanced, but it also feels like it didn't take place way far out in the future. And I think that like builds to the realism of it. What do you guys think of like the creature design? Because I really like it.
They're so cool. I like it. It used to freak me out how fast they are. I used to watch that movie and think like, how would anyone kill one of those? They move way too fast.
Yeah, I kind of didn't like that because they moved so impressively fast that there was no way that anyone would ever actually be able to kill these things.
It'd be impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that they can literally just like very slowly swing a giant sword, very Japanese manga-esque.
Yes.
Like that part is kind of ridiculous to me. Like you don't need to show that single, there's just one of the small minions that just absolutely wrecks everybody. That is so unnecessary because just from there, I feel like this thing is so unwinnable. But you could have just kept it like they move really fast. They somehow can shoot projectiles out of their bodies that just make missiles.
It's just cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like that part is cool. You just didn't need to make them like godlike.
Yeah,
in that
just
one shot.
Did you like how they look though, Calvin?
Yeah, I do like it's kind of like, I mean, it's pretty much just trying to build on Transformers, the idea of like sentient garbage.
Yeah, kind of. I also like, it seems like when they move around or when they make like sounds and signal each other and just projections just pop out of their body. And I love the creature design. I also love the sound of them. It sounds like it's just like this low tone where they always have like their mouths open, especially like the alpha. Mm-hmm. It looks like it should be roaring, but it's just like this rumble. And I think that's like a really interesting way because they could have gone over the top with the sound design. And I kind of like how they left it just kind of like a rumble. Makes them, the way they move and then the way they sound makes them so much more menacing than like...
There's like an obvious way they could have gone and they went the other way.
And they don't actually look what they did in the light novel. They're just like giant like blobs with like blocky teeth, and then they like shoot spikes out of them.
Yeah, it's cool how they describe them because I'm the only one between the three of us who read the novel.
Yeah, which is good because I do want to move into like the source material, and so you like listen to an audio version of All You Need Is Kill?
I finished it right before coming over here,
which is perfect timing.
Yep. So the aliens, they're not for spoiler alert, they're not actually aliens. The aliens are on another planet, and they sent this asteroid to Earth to terraform it. And these nanobots who are supposed to terraform, they like fused with starfish underwater, and then they started to populate and clone, and that's where these mimics came from. They're actually like part jellyfish. Not jellyfish, sorry, starfish.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
That might be something that they explore in the sequel because we were kind of talking about that before we recorded, and I was like, yeah, the aliens, and you were telling me like, yeah, they're not aliens.
Not aliens, no.
Like, okay, well, I'm ready for you to explain that to me because they seem like aliens.
It's really interesting because in the opening montage, they're showing news footage of all these things crashing from the sky, and it seems like it's just an asteroid or whatever because that's what they say in the movie. Like, oh, the asteroids, there's probably thousands of them in the galaxy, right? But in the book, it's like a spacecraft. It like splits apart and part of it lands in the ship.
Huh, okay.
Or part of it lands in the water, rather.
I like the idea of adapting it to like an asteroid that just got flung out into space and it eventually landed on Earth and caused this havoc. But
it's really interesting. Like they don't focus much on the mimics that much. Like they could have been any kind of alien or whatever, but they're just creatures, which I think is an interesting way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see that explored more in the sequel.
Yeah.
Wash, rinse, repeat. But we can talk more about the characters now. I want to talk about Tom Cruise, plays Major Cage. I have an interesting thought because I think it's miscast to put Tom Cruise in this. And we talked also about how this is a action comedy. My problem with it is it's like, so it starts out with Tom Cruise character, who we all know is in 100 action movies and he's always the hero. So there's no like, I'm just waiting for the point in the movie where he becomes badass hero because I know that that is what Tom Cruise does. I would have liked someone like Adam Scott to be cast in this from like Parks and Rec. He's in Krampus, which we're going to do a review on later.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy. Okay. Yeah.
Because I think he would do a really good job of being like kind of the snarky, sarcastic guy who tells the general off, who's like, I'm not going to go to war. I'm like public relations.
So,
and he has enough like good charisma to pull off like a guy who's on camera.
Yeah.
But also be like, he has like great comedic timing. So I think all the stuff he would have done with Sergeant Farrell would have been really funny. And then to see a guy who kind of looks like a nerd guy be forced to become like that hero and over time, like become that guy, I think would have played out if it's going to be like a real action comedy. I would have loved to see like someone like that in this role instead of Tom Cruise, who we already know has been action hero a bunch of times. I wonder what you guys think of that casting. Do you like Tom Cruise in this, or do you think it could have worked with someone else?
I like Tom Cruise in this.
Okay.
I like him a lot. And I also don't think it matters who you cast in that role. In terms of like our expectations for how the rest of the story is going to play out, because we can tell by the funny goofiness of the tone, the fact that it's a big budget Hollywood movie, that it's going to end well. Like everything's going to work out. There's never really a question of how this character is going to ultimately overcome his obstacles because of the structure of the narrative, not because of the casting. I think like I like the like goofiness, like the kind of like it kind of like makes me think of like you remember his character in Tropic Thunder?
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's like him, but like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I'm just public relations man, and he's not like angry and like yelling obscenities yet because he hasn't seen enough. But that's basically like, I just think of it as an extension of that type of Tom Cruise character.
I don't think he's bad in this by any means. I think he gives like, this is one of my favorite movies and I love Tom Cruise in it. I think that role specifically, like that character to me suffers because it's not like a nerd guy in it. It's action hero Tom Cruise. So what do you think of that, McKenna?
We all expect him to be the action hero at some point after he's lived the same day over and over. Are you saying that you have a hard time with him as a character before that point when he's playing like a coward who's never been in a fight before? Does that not sell for you?
No, I'm fine with that. It's just I already know he's going to become action hero at the end. If you cast someone who doesn't seem like an action hero
Sure.
and then they become that, like that evolution of the character would impact me more.
I guess so. I mean, we all know Iron Man's going to win by the end of the movie, but we're still invested in the movie to see the journey.
I don't know, because like I like the metamorphosis that Tony Stark goes through because he's just like a playboy kind of douchebag, and then he kind of realizes the kind of like the right things he should be doing.
Right, and there's that journey. But what I'm saying,
but
is
I don't think. But when I think of Robert Downey Jr., I don't think of big action star. I do now because he's done 100 Iron Man movies.
Sure,
but originally I don't think of him that way, which is why I think that character works.
You're saying it's because Tom Cruise is a different. He's cast for different roles than Robert Downey Jr. is.
Yeah, it's specifically the casting is like why I think it would have been different.
I think if who was the actor that you said from Parks and Rec?
Adam Scott.
If they cast him for the role and he did a good cowardly soldier, wouldn't he have a difficulty selling like an action hero by the end of the movie when he's lived the same day over and over?
That's exactly the way I feel too.
Because you'd have the opposite problem with
Yeah.
him.
I actually find like it's easier to see someone who I've seen in all of these action roles be this cowardly, goofy guy getting his ass kicked by these machines in the beginning, to see his metamorphosis as like, okay, that's believable to me. I would find it much harder to see Adam Scott, badass, like future warrior, future mech warrior. That would be a lot harder for me to take, I think.
I guess I just believe in him more than you guys do.
I think
I would have to see him like
yeah.
I would have to see it because he certainly wasn't that in Krampus. And what was that other one he was in?
He goes like, I got to
to
protect my flock. He's great in that.
I'm picturing him scowling in like the jacket that they wear when they go out to the beach to fight the mimics and stuff. And I can't imagine a serious moment with him. That's all.
I just like the idea, and I think it
I
plays.
think he would do a good job with the comedic parts.
That's
You're
why
right
I
about
think
that,
it would work.
Yeah, and I think that's why Tom Cruise works so well, is because he plays both of those very different tones at the same time.
I think he does a good job with the comedic parts and his line delivery and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we've talked about Cage. I want to talk about Emily Blunt's character Rita. I love how she's introduced. It's like Cage has been shot, and he's like, "Is it bad? Like, am I going to be okay? Is there a lot of blood?" And she's just like taking the battery out of his suit, like doesn't care what's going on with him. And I think that sets up her character perfectly, because then we go on and she's just shooting Cage like every time he gets hurt from then on, like while they're training. I think Emily Blunt's great in this. Like, this is probably the first movie I was like, oh man, I really want to see the stuff that she's in.
So I have really strong feelings about her because they have that exact same part in the book. And when the main character of the book gets shot in the chest, instead of her taking the battery and just leaving him to die, she stays by his side and waits for him to die, and then takes the battery because she doesn't want to leave him. And she has more personality and like humanity in the book, which I think is really good. In the movie, she has far less humanity, I think.
Yeah, and it's also interesting thinking of her as like, you know, she's kind of like that neo-feminist badass, but only badass in terms of like, look at her, she's awesome, but she's really only there to help Tom Cruise. So there's a limit to how much how empowering that character is to women in general, because it's still like she's just a stepping stone for him. Because if this had been about Verdun, this is a very different movie and she's a very different character, and that's pretty cool. But instead, it's really just her helping Cage.
She's a supporting character, but also a badass, which is like a difficult line to balance.
Yeah, exactly. And we just see her getting like killed over and over because he's not taking care of her.
It kind of flips the idea of like how you would traditionally tell this story. Is like she is like the hardened warrior who should be the hero of the movie, but we're following like the meek public relations guy who slowly learns to become the hero. And you're right, we talk about it like seeing her character die over and over again, which is it takes like kind of that concept or the thing that we see all the time, like the badass hero, but she's the one dying. I kind of actually like the idea of.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing in Avatar. It's the same thing in Ferngully. It's the same thing in Dances with Wolves. We don't actually care about the characters that it's about. It's about this person who is not equipped for the role they're in, being trained by someone and who is, and then how they overcome it. That's the problem I have with it. It's the same sort of limiting narrative of interesting characters for people that we find
for Tom Cruise.
Yeah, exactly.
So would you say Emily Blunt is the teacher archetype or the damsel in distress archetype?
It's really interesting that you say that, because it's like it's almost like it's both, you know. Mm-hmm. It's depending on like what part of the film they are. Like he's either the thing that he's taking care of, or she's the thing trying to teach him. Mm-hmm. But either way, they're subservient to his journey.
Yeah, it kind of goes back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to talk about Sergeant Farrell at all?
I didn't realize it was Bill Paxton.
I just love Bill Paxton in this. He's great.
Every line that he says. When we did the Avatar review for the commentary, I talked a lot about how much I quote that movie. I quote this movie far more to my life.
Oh, really?
Oh, the fiery crucible which all true heroes are forged.
I love him. He's like, oh, you're in America. He's like, I'm from Kentucky.
No, sir, I'm from Kentucky.
Yeah, it's so good. He's a really nice bit of levity, and not that there's not enough comedic parts in this, but I do love that the movie just really takes its time to be like, Bill Paxton's funny, and we're just gonna have him on screen being funny for a little while.
Everything he says is gold.
It's amazing,
and he only gets that one section. Like if you think about the number of lines he has, it's just that one moment where he's leading him to the barracks, and then he's literally not in the movie at any other part of the timeline. Yeah. Like he's on the beach and stuff, but he's not like the character that we care about anymore. He's just kind of there leading people and saying things.
He gets a ton of screen time, but it's just saying like the same 8 lines over and over.
Yeah,
I do like that. Leads into kind of my thoughts on the pace of this and how it does. It seems to you'll get a big like action set piece in the beginning where he's going to the beach over and over again, but he's not like very good yet, so he keeps dying. And then the movie kind of slows down and gets you kind of set up like, how are we really building the plot? And that's when you get a lot of Bill Paxton again. And you had him at the beginning as well. Even though it's like essentially it's the same scene playing over and over again, there's like subtle differences in it. And that's why I think this movie is paced out really well, because you're not just reliving like literally the same moment over and over again. You're doing the same day, but it's like the movie chooses to pick which part of it you're going to be watching for an extended period of time.
And you can also tell that first scene when he first gets in to meet J Squad, it was filmed with multiple cameras and multiple times. Like you have different camera angles, you have different perspectives that we're looking at. At the first one, it's all from Cage's perspective, and the other ones you're starting to see all the other characters and the things that them looking at him. And it's nice, not because like oh, what a great feat of filmmaking. It's just most of the time it's very lazily done, and everyone just reuses the same shot over and over, and I hate that. So for them to at least have taken the time to show this scene in different ways each time is at least they understand like how it will happen. Like each time will be different, will feel different.
It certainly would get tired if it was literally the same, like they just put the same scene in and used it over and over again and then had like a slightly different reaction to it over and over again.
Right.
It would have been, it would have gotten really tired. So I do like that. Every shot feels like it's a slightly different timeline, you know?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love how funny this movie is. Honestly, one of my favorite parts is like when they're doing push-ups and there's that truck coming and you can tell he's about to try and roll away and then he rolls into the truck and he goes, ah! They're just like, oh.
I had to rewind that like 3 times last night.
So
it's
funny.
my favorite. It's like one of my favorite parts in the whole movie. Yeah.
That's
what
what
were you thinking, Private?
Yeah, and that's like what I mean by like the Wile E. Coyote, like random goofy deaths of this character who's just always trying. That part is so funny to me.
Yeah.
So there's some controversy surrounding that on how it works with the timeline of the movie. So there was a theory that like, okay, so every other time he dies, it's like immediately it starts the next day. That's the only time he dies. And you get Bill Paxton being like, what were you thinking? And so it's like, oh, this must start a new timeline every time he dies. So there's a multiverse now in The Edge of Tomorrow. The explanation I have for that is like it just took him a couple minutes to die after he got run over, and then that immediately gets rid of that theory. So I don't think that because if you do that, then there's a bunch of alternate universes where Emily Blunt is court-martialed for shooting Cage in the face during their training montage.
Exactly.
But how many multiverses do we win? One.
And I think that's exactly. And I think that's the point too of like the creature's power is that it literally is resetting. There's one timeline, everything is being reset because otherwise then that power doesn't make sense. For their existence as a species.
One of the other thing that kind of lends to that theory of it being multiverses is there's actually it's like a little Easter egg, but you can see Doctor Strange in the background going through all the different timelines to figure out which one works. So that's why I say there's a lot of controversy surrounding that scene.
Yeah, I didn't recognize. I didn't see. Maybe Benedict Cumberbatch was in J Squad.
You know I'm full of my fun facts.
That's so stupid.
That is my worst fake fun fact. But yeah, so as far as like how the story is told, I love how it has like ebbs and flows. It has, I think, really good parts of action, and then it definitely has parts of just big bits of just explaining what's going on, like when they meet that professor who's been kind of like cast away to the dungeon, and he's looking up like the right dam for them to go to. There's definitely like exposition to this movie, but I think it all moves along like really well, and that's what I think what makes this like such a good movie, even though it like Calvin has a problem that maybe it's not like really it's dipping its toe in telling a deeper story, and it's not doing that. I think it all still works because it's just paced out wonderfully, and I'm into this movie from start to finish.
It's not that I don't think that it works. I think it absolutely works, but what I mean is that I think that there is depth that they could. We'll get into that more in a second, but there's just plenty of it just wants to focus on being an action thriller with comedic bits. Like another one of my favorite lines is actually like he's like, you know, is there like a way to pass on the blood, you know? And he's like motioning to oh, you mean sex? And he like tried it, and he was like, how many times? She just hits the button.
It's wonderful. I kind of wish the movie would have leaned into the comedy more, because I think it's not as much like the director talks about it being an action comedy, and I was like, I mean, there are funny parts in it, but I wouldn't call it an action comedy like outright. I would be like, it's an action movie with some comedy in it, but I don't think it's trying to be an action comedy really.
I think it is.
I think the number of times I laughed during that movie, I would definitely call it an action comedy. Yeah.
Okay.
So many of the deaths are just so goofy. like especially when they're like walking through the like the timeline. Okay, then you go over the bunker, turn left, and like you can hear him narrating it, and all of a sudden like she just gets run over. Like shoot.
Yeah. Talking about kind of reliving these moments over and over again, I think one thing about the pace of the movie that works out really well is you feel like you're watching things as they're happening. Like we're following, Kate
Each day sequentially.
Yes, and then all of a sudden it feels like it jumps forward. Like he's like, I've done this 100 times. It doesn't work if we do this. And you're like, oh, I think that's an interesting way for like this concept to still keep the viewer guessing, even though we know it's the same day over and over again. But all of a sudden it feels like it skips forward. And I like kind of really like that that aspect of the movie. I think one of the ways it's maybe used the best is when Cage and Rita Vertasky have gotten off the beach and they're in the car, and he keeps bringing like, oh, your middle name is Rose, or he talks about like her brother. And I like to think of it, he's lived this day so many times that he's just kind of throwing out stories. Like he's just making it up every time to see which one like she reacts to. Like eventually he'll figure out like the truth about her. And I really like that little sequence in the car. I think it's like kind of a really like gets to like the heart of the movie,
Yeah, and I absolutely agree, because like that's the moment where, like, other than like, so there's that one where he decides to take a day off and go to the pub in London for like a day of reprieve from his despair, which I thought was just interesting. If you're gonna die, may as well just go to the bar for once, and then I'll go back the next day. But yeah, driving with Rita and like explaining like how much he knows about her, how one-sided the relationship is for him, despite the fact that she knows what he's going through. He's completely alone with his memories, and this is the heart of the movie that I was hoping they'd explore, like this idea that like we're doing this over and over and again, that human experience is memory. Do we even exist if we don't have memory? And then specifically to this film, how many lifetimes did he live? The weight of hundreds of thousands, of tens of thousands of lives lived, of trial and error, hope and despair. And then it's just like a goofy death after that. Or just like a death, and he starts over, and Bill Paxton's like, the fiery crucible. Right. And then it totally changes in a way that I really wish they had leaned more into, like one deep monologue where it just sign like in Jaws and Quint's speech about the all of the sharks eating all of the sailors after the MacArthur crashes or is marooned or whatever, or it starts to sink. Just a moment like that where we really start to soak in like how much this character has gone through, and like the weight of his existential death of day after day.
Right.
That would have been. It would have transcended boundaries beyond. It would have been a great action thriller. It would have been a great, funny action thriller with an incredible amount of sadness and like real human experience here that they don't care about.
What do you think of that, McKinnon?
I think that it might be out of place to have a deep scene like that in a movie like this.
Yeah, but they keep hinting at it. That's my problem. Don't hint at it at all then, if that's not even what the film is about.
So the emotional climax of this movie for me is after Rita tries to fly the helicopter and Tom Cruise kills himself, and in the next life Tom Cruise does it by himself, right? Because he doesn't want to risk Rita anymore. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the emotional climax, and you want something above that tries to tell a story about how humanity is about the memories we have.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have like, again, just hints of experience of like what this character's going through, and his actions are really just more in service to moving a plot forward about action, about getting to his objective, rather than like I kind of would like to see another version where this guy just never accomplishes what he wants to. He keeps living the same day regardless. Even if he does kill the creature at the end, he still has to do it again.
That is so not the narrative they would have chose for like the summer blockbuster they were hoping it would be.
Yeah, exactly.
I like your idea, but like there's just no way that movie ever gets made.
I absolutely agree. That's why I would rather they just not even bring up much of it at all. Okay. Like I don't care that much about their relationship, because Cage's and Rita's, because they don't really give a lot of like information about it. There's not a lot of connection. It's all about it's a buddy comedy.
I have a note that I find the romance between them to be completely unnecessary and out of place.
It's like my least favorite part of
I
the whole
don't understand
movie.
it.
What was the kiss for? That was so dumb.
I wrote the same thing. Yeah, if they didn't kiss at the climax of the movie, I think it would have been 10 times better.
Yeah.
Because the most emotion that he gives is when they're at the farmhouse and she's about to get in the helicopter and he's like, I wish I didn't know you.
Yeah.
Which to me doesn't mean like I'm romantically in love with you. It just means like you're a big part of my life. You're the person I've seen over these thousands of lives, but we don't need to be romantically involved. And then they give the kiss at the end. I'm like, this
I don't
sucks.
like that one bit.
She's known him for a day. It'd be one thing if like he kissed her and she just has this look of shock, but the fact that she kissed him is stupid.
Because that would have been funny, yeah. If in one of the lives he kisses her,
Yeah, that would have been good.
That would have been hilarious, yeah.
If he was like said so, he's like, okay, don't do that next time. Like,
Yeah, I would have loved it. Like,
or he kissed her and she pulled a gun on him or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like the first time they meet, like, what do you want? And he just went up and like, good morning, and then like
slapped her on the butt or something.
Yeah, it's like. Oh.
So McKinnon, you mentioned that he decides to kind of do the whole get through the beach on his own, get to the barn, and then get to the dam.
Mm-hmm.
I think that and I hate doing this because this isn't like, that channel Cinema Sins that I hate, that brings up a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter, and it doesn't ruin the movie in any way. It's just
nitpicking. Yeah.
It's just a guy who has nothing better to do. I actually think I found a plot hole in this that actually doesn't make any sense. So we see Rita get killed on the beach several times when he is not like working with her, or maybe it's just one time when she gets blown up. But anyways, Rita dies on the beach when he's not aware of this power yet.
I don't think we do.
Yeah, she's like staring at him like on the top of like a dune, and she gets blown up by.
Right. So if he wasn't there, she wouldn't be distracted. So it's conceivable that she survives.
Okay.
Because when we do see her, it's because she's distracted with him.
Okay, that might be true. My idea of the plot hole is like she dies on the beach if he doesn't intervene, because there's a bunch of other times where he like goes in and saves her from aliens that are popping in like a derelict
So if he
ship.
did kill the Omega, she would be dead forever.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. I was like, so what? Yeah, what happens if the Omega is at the dam and he does kill it?
Yeah,
he's essentially now Rita is dead forever.
You could argue,
which is what he's avoiding the entire movie.
Yeah, maybe you could argue that his emotional distance after losing her at the helicopter, like when he goes in alone, he's just tired of bringing her along and he's giving her up also, and then he gets on the helicopter and goes to the dam alone because he's given up.
Maybe. I just thought like maybe
I don't think
was
that's what it is. I'm just saying it's conceivable.
I just thought it was a little. It kind of doesn't make sense for his character. He spends so much time going through all these steps on the beach to keep her alive, and then to essentially go through a timeline where she conceivably would die on the beach.
If he wanted to protect her, then the day of the battle, he would handcuff her to her bed or something, and then go into battle.
That'd be a
without
great
her.
scene.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Calvin, what do you think of that? Because I don't usually like to get into plot holes and stuff, but that was just one that I thought of. I was like, do you have an excuse for that, or am I just like diving too deep into that?
Yeah, I don't really see it as a plot hole, because you can make the same case every time that she dies if he goes on to the Omega. I don't think that the only way that she lives for sure is with him getting her off the beach.
So I have this theory about the helicopter, actually, and I want to tell you about this, Calvin. So when Tom Cruise gets in the helicopter and he goes to the dam, he doesn't bring any food with him. So I actually think he's going to kill himself.
That's absolutely true.
You think so?
Yep, just like Up.
Just like Up,
It's
okay.
like it's basically a rip off of Up, straight up. Blatant rip off of Up.
So there's I don't know if we passed this already, but I had an interesting thought about this. When he's living each day over and over, I think it's very interesting in this movie that they don't focus on him learning about J Squad. But by the end of the movie, he convinces them all to go with him. He's like, he knew my second grade math teacher, but they skip over all of that. They don't spend any time of Tom Cruise talking to J Squad. But you figure he learns about the J Squad through all these lives. I just think it's really smart that they don't spend time on that, because that would really drag the movie down.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, because the movie kind of tricks you into thinking we're watching every day that he goes through, but there's hundreds of days that we didn't see.
Yeah,
where he is getting to know J Squad. Like even the couple times he comes back and he's on the tarmac and the Master Sergeant Farrell is like kicking him to wake up and everything, and he goes in and he sneaks up and like covers up the card game the way they don't have to eat the cards, and he like winks at J Squad and stuff. Like we didn't see him like mess that up a couple times or like learn everything about them, so it's like implied that he had several days where he had gotten to know them. So yeah, I agree with you. It's like that's one of the part of the pacing I really like of this movie is we don't need to see every day.
Yeah, you miss a lot of days where he learns about all of the route that they need to take to get off the beach and stuff. They don't hold your hand through all of it, which I think is smart.
I kind of disagree. I think they hold your hand a lot. There are some things that they fill gaps in. but it's really just moments. It's not like the whole thing. I'd rather they just don't have like the doctor character, and like they just kind of figure out like through trial and error where this thing is.
Okay.
Just by themselves.
I don't really like the scientist.
Yeah.
And the fact I don't really like him very much.
And the little like beacon thing, like how they have to go to the
not in the book, by the way.
I had imagined.
I figured,
so. Yeah. That one's like it's really really contrived.
Yeah.
It's really it's like a I don't know. Yeah, that one's just not good at all. And it's just another like adding more screen time.
Yeah.
Another bit of an adventure.
In the book, there's no talk about the Omega and the Alpha.
I had read that is not a thing. It's created just for the film.
So because they added complication to the movie, they had to add the scientist to give exposition, I assume.
Yeah, that makes well in the book though, it's like they all have these beacons, right? Like that's what the alphas are. They're beacons.
They're described as mimics that you just know they're a little different. Like they don't look giant and blue like they do in the movie.
But they're called beacons. Like that's what I read the synopsis.
Yeah.
Is. Like they referred to them as beacons.
Yeah. The people who live each day over and over and over only know that they're different because they've killed, thousands of mimics.
Are there multiple people who live every day?
No, it's the main character, the guy, and Rita.
Okay.
So it's funny, the main character he's a Japanese soldier, and they're fighting a war in China. And his last name is Korea.
Oh,
which is wild. I think.
Yeah, I love like a lot of times with like Japanese media, especially like when they make up names, especially last names, like how they're vaguely reminiscent of that language, like Vrataski.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. That is such a ridiculous name.
Yeah. Also,
it's so funny though.
The audiobook is read by an American reader, and it's supposed to be about a Japanese guy, and it
right.
There's no accent or anything. It's very jarring.
So we kind of talked about how we don't like the doctor, but I think that actually leads into one of the best sequences in the movie where they have to go and confront the general again. And like they finally get out. They get like the little device they need, and Rita's like, well, what do we do now? He's like, I don't know. I've never gotten this far. Which is different than kind of the rest of the movie where it's like it feels like this has happened over and over again. And so I like that eventually it's like the viewer is finally caught up to Cage and Rita, where now that we're also kind of in this area where, oh, what is going to happen next? Because it feels like we've known what's going to happen next because it keeps playing out the same way. So I actually like that sequence a lot. And then, of course, it leads into like them doing it over and over again and kind of figuring it out. But it does feel like when Cage gets like the blood transfusion and he's like, I'm out of the game. He's like, we have to do it for real now. And that's when like the stakes of the movie go way up, I think. I think it becomes much more interesting. It's like kind of fun up until then. But then it's like now the drama's really set in, knowing like this is your last life. Like this is, and leads into the ending of them like going to the Louvre. Do you guys kind of feel that at all? Or was it like, I kind of would have liked them playing with time more?
I like the playing with time. I think the climax of this movie sucks. So I know when they wake up in the hospital and the blood transfusion is gone, I kind of check out of this movie because I think the climax is very boring.
Yeah, totally agree.
It's
a different movie now.
Yeah, the whole movie's like exciting beach battle where they're living over and over, and the action's captivating the whole time, and then all of a sudden it's just two people outside of their suits trying to get to the Omega by running.
Then it turns into Ocean's 11, and I don't care about that.
I don't like it.
Yeah, Ocean's 11 with no fun or charm.
Well, that sucks because Ocean's 11 is all fun and charm.
Exactly. That's literally like what I mean.
There's one thing I always wish that they did with the climax. So when Tom Cruise is living each day over and over, there's the guy in the dropship who's like, hey, something wrong with your suit. There's a dead guy in it. And I really wish when they were in the ship going to the Louvre, if Tom Cruise told him, like, hey, there's something wrong with your suit. There's a dead guy in it.
Oh, that would have been great.
It would have been amazing.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I don't think it would have fit the tone of the moment, but it would have been really funny.
Yeah, exactly. Not of the moment, but it would have been indicative of the movie. And
it's because
they kind of lost what they were when they decided to go that way.
At that point, the jokes stop. As soon as they wake up after the blood transfusion, there's like not another joke, I think.
Yeah, not until the ending, like when she's like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
That's it, yeah. So, it probably would crash the third act if they did put a joke in there. But
I suppose you're right. I guess I liked it because it was like, you're raising the stakes now, and now we have to kind of take this movie more seriously. But I guess you're right. Like Calvin said, the movie kind of loses itself once they can't relive the day.
They just barrel through like 1,000 of these mimics. They get to the Louvre, and then they just have to run past a couple of the alphas. That's it.
They never took itself seriously. And if it took itself seriously, it should have gone down the philosophical route, not the action route. And that's the problem I have with it.
See, I would have gone the other way. I would have leaned into the action and just killed the philosophy.
Yeah, and I think I would have done that too if my goal was to make a summer blockbuster.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's weird that they didn't do that. But yeah, I just think that like this really could have been one of the best movies of all time because of the way that they decided to treat an action movie.
So,
but yeah,
it's interesting in the book. They Rita and the guy, they end up having to fight each other because they have to end the loop somehow, and they're like, one of us needs to go
because they're also beacons,
right?
Oh, I like that a lot.
The guy ends up killing Rita. She dies at the end. But they're so good at fighting because she's gone through so many of these repeated loops and he's gone through so many repeated loops that they battle each other for hours because they're so good at fighting.
Dang, I like that idea a lot.
So it would have been interesting if they did something similar, like after Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt are out and they have to like battle through the loop to get to the Omega, they're just war machines just like mowing down mimics. That could have been a neater way to go. But like you're saying, that wouldn't be a way to make a movie that's trying to say something. That's how you make a summer blockbuster.
Right, exactly. But it would have been more like believable if they had included something like that here in a way that a lot of other movies, the mythologizing around characters like In the Harder They Fall, we did that a little while ago. And those characters are just not even looking, they're just shooting guns at windows and people are dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
stylized and actually ends up not being fun because of that.
Yeah, it's super cheesy. But here, where we know that they have lived thousands of days of this exact sequence and they don't even need to look because they've just like the same way when Tom Cruise or when Cage closes his eyes and fights that one dude like
I like that part.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes, you can do whatever you want, and he just like throws him into the wall. And that's amazing. And we get like so much out of like he's just like, this is a day to him. This isn't interesting. This is something that has happened so many times that he doesn't even care about the substance of what's happening.
I love that he says, he's like, do we have to do this today? Like, he's so over it.
Yeah.
Which is something interesting. I keep bringing up the book, but it's really interesting that in the book, the focus is that he's training and getting better. Like his reflexes are improving, stuff like that. Whereas in the movie, it's just him living the same monotonous day over and over. Do we really have to do this again, guys? Like that kind of thing.
Right.
It's just an interesting difference.
Yeah. And I think the exasperation is what leads into the comedy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. That's why that stuff works.
There's no comedy in the book at all, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's nice to see like how you can adapt something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like it's something that is not, it's supposed to be comedic. And then this has like a lot of comedic bits in it. I like that you can take inspiration from something, you don't have to like Zack Snyder has to like take something like the source material and literally make it like frame for frame in the movie adaptation. Well, so I like the idea of like taking the heart of something or the concept of something and then working it into like a different sort of story.
Totally. Yeah.
So I want to move into final thoughts now. And McKinnon, how would you rate this one? How many fiery crucibles do you give this?
Oh boy. I know I keep saying the book or whatever, but listening to the book made me appreciate this movie a lot more than I did before. Like I said, the book doesn't have any comedy. There's not a whole lot of life in it. It's more like the Halo books. I know I've talked about those before. I've been reading the Halo novels, and they're more military focused. Whereas the movie, there's military, but it's not like hoorah kind of movie. You know what I mean? It's funny. There's a lot of good pacing, and it works really well for me. So I'll give it 9.7 crucibles.
Wow.
Fiery crucibles.
That's amazing.
It's a big score.
It loses points only because there's stuff about Emily Blunt that I really don't like in this movie at all. There's one line that she delivers that I really like. It's when they're at the farmhouse and Tom Cruise asks for more time to like look around for stuff, and she's like, fine, 10 more minutes, then I'm killing you. That's the only line in this movie I think that she delivers well at all.
Oh, okay. I think she's kind of a scene stealer, but that's okay.
You also don't like Tom Cruise in this movie, so.
No, I said I do like Tom Cruise. I just think you could have cast Adam Scott and it would have been really good.
When you said that, I thought you were going to say Adam Sandler.
Oh boy, no.
Imagine Adam Sandler in this movie.
Imagine that.
That movie is a banger if Adam Sandler is in there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Bill Paxton. It'd be like
Yeah, it would have been Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi. Yeah. Or David Spade or something.
Oh man, with that whole like '90s SNL cast in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just grown-ups, but
Yeah.
Edge
Oh,
Edge
boy.
of Tomorrow.
I hate that idea.
it would have just been Edge of Sandler.
Calvin, what do you give this movie? What do you think of it?
So to me, it's so close to being utterly brilliant, genre defying, boundary breaking. But it falls back into the same tropes of what they were looking for. You know, we need to make our money back, and it's a Hollywood action thriller blockbuster. So it's very good. It's very intelligent. In some parts, there's heart and depth that it hints at, but overall, it's just a solid like 7.4. You know,
I didn't even bring up the stats. This was a $178 million budget, and it made $370.5 million. So it was successful financially, but it was not the big hit they were hoping it was going to be.
it was
It's not what I was thinking it would be. Yeah, I thought it would
technically
be more.
considered a flop.
Yeah, for that kind of budget, you're expecting to like hit high 100 million. So the
Yeah.
fact that it only reached 370, it's almost like people didn't know what this movie was because they kept changing how they marketed it.
Calvin, do you like action movies? Like, as action movies go, does this rank well?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's action, it's fun, but it's also just not for the point of entertainment.
It doesn't hit the philosophical note that you were hoping for.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But like, yeah. So if I were just to look for pure action, I don't like action because there's no humanness in it. It's just the idea of hinting at human elements to make it believable to a human audience, but we don't actually care about whether these are people or not. They are just ideas happening in a linear fashion.
Mindless action like Infinity War doesn't strike a chord with you.
No,
Okay.
there's no emotion in it.
Well, I like this movie a lot. I don't think it, like you said, I think it kind of teases the idea of like deeper meaning and like answering real questions. But I don't think it needs to be that. I'm entertained throughout this whole movie. And I think at the end of the day, that's what most movies need to do. They need to be entertaining. So I like this one a lot. It's, like I said, I talk about the pacing. I like the performances. And I love the visual effects and the practical effects. Those are like, hit all the notes for me. So yeah, I put this at like a 8 out of 10 Fiery Crucibles. I like this one a lot. I was glad we got around to this one. This was like on McKinnon's list of favorites. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised that this is actually higher than The Humans for you.
see, that's a tough one because we've talked about how like that movie only gets better to me. I know what this movie is by watching it like 1 or 2 times. I don't know everything that The Humans is by one viewing, which is why I know deep down it's a better movie than this. I just, on one viewing, I can't give it like a 10 out of 10, you know?
I know. You just got to start using decimals.
I think this movie gets better and better for me. Even though I know everything that's going to happen, I think it gets better. Just because I have so many memories watching this movie with my wife and other people, laughing at all the funny lines and stuff.
All right. Well, I think with that, we're closing this one out. And I just want to say thank you for joining us again, McKinnon. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Happy to be here.
And you can find our podcast on any platform that you listen on, like Spotify or Apple Music. You can also reach us at nowthisIspodcasting100@gmail.com. We also upload all these to YouTube. I like checking the comment section. So if you have suggestions on stuff we can do in the future, tell us what we did right, tell us what we did wrong. All comments are welcome. And with that, I would just want to say thank you for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.